The world knew Sammy Davis Jr. as one of the brightest stars in entertainment, a man who danced under the lights of Las Vegas, shared the stage with Frank Sinatra, and was applauded on Broadway. But in 1960, he made a statement that shocked both Hollywood and all of America. Sammy Davis Jr. announced his conversion to Judaism. A black man in the white-dominated space of American entertainment already drew enough attention. But now this same man was saying he was Jewish. Two identities in one body. Society struggled to process this. But the real question was, why had Sammy made such a decision? The official story was simple: spiritual designs, cultural connection, general curiosity. But the true story was never fully told, because that story began on a cold November night in 1954, lying in a hospital. And what happened in that room would change Sammy's life until the very end. Hysterical. If this story grips you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We are diving deep into Sammy Davis Jr.'s past, revealing events full of intriguing truths at every second. November 19, 1954, San Bernardino Highway, California. Late at night, the mist is wet, visibility is low. Sammy Davis Jr. is behind the wheel, his friend Charlie Head beside him. The car is traveling at 75 miles per hour. Sammy is tired. He had done a show in Vegas the night before, hit the road at dawn, and was returning to Los Angeles. His eyelids are heavy, but the road is long and he wants to get home. Then comes the moment that changes everything. An oncoming vehicle changes lanes, brakes, screams, the sound of crunching metal, and then darkness. When Sammy opens his eye, he is in the operating room of San Bernardino Community Hospital. The pain is unbearable. His face is bandaged. Even breathing is agony. The doctors tell him the truth. His left eye is gone. Shards of glass had pierced the eye. There was no chance to repair the injury. Sammy Davis Jr., 29 years old, had lost an eye. And in that moment, he thinks his career is over. Because for a man who dances, sings, and feeds on applause, physical integrity is everything. How will he dance with one eye? How will he take the stage? How will the audience accept him? In that hospital, Sammy experiences one of his darkest moments. But in that darkness, something is waiting for him. An object, a nurse, and a question. Do you believe in God? The nurse's name is Judy, a young woman perhaps in her early 30s. She comes to Sammy every day, changes his bandages, gives him medicine, checks his pulse. But one day she does something outside the routine checkups. She pulls a small object from her pocket. Sammy tries to look with his single eye but can't see clearly. Judy places the object in Sammy's hand. "This is for you," she says. "Maybe you need this now." Sammy feels the object. Small, metal on a chain, a necklace. There is a shape on it, a six-pointed star, the Star of David. Judy continues, "Do you believe in God, Mr. Davis?" Sammy pauses. He had never taken this question seriously before. Was he taken to church as a child? Maybe, but religion had never held a central place in his life. The stage, the dance, the applause, these were his gods. But now, lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling with one eye, he feels something is missing. He answers Judy, "I don't know, I guess I never thought about it." Judy smiles. "Maybe now is the time to think," and she leaves the room. Sammy looks at the necklace in his hand, the Star of David. Why would a nurse give him a Jewish symbol? Is Judy Jewish? Sammy doesn't ask, he wonders. And that necklace ends up on the nightstand. But all day his eye is drawn to it. It's as if that small piece of metal is trying to tell him something. But what? Days pass. Sammy's condition stabilizes physically, but psychologically he is collapsing. Visitors come. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, other friends. They all try to cheer him up, saying everything will be fine. But Sammy sees the pity in their eyes, and that pity burns him even more. One night he is left alone in the hospital. Visiting hours are over, the nurses are on rounds elsewhere, and there is silence in the corridor. Sammy takes the necklace from the nightstand. He holds it, turning it between his fingers. The Star of David, two triangles, one inside the other, a simple but powerful symbol. For the first time, Sammy asks himself a deep spiritual question. Who am I? Am I just an entertainer? Just a man who dances? If the stage lights go out, what is left? And at that moment something happens. Maybe coincidence, maybe fate. The door opens slightly and a man walks in, tall, bearded, with an expression of wisdom. He is dressed in black with a small yarmulke on his head. The man introduces himself. I am Rabbi Max Nussbaum. I came to see you, Mr. Davis. Sammy is surprised. Why would a rabbi come to visit him? He isn't Jewish, but Rabbi Nussbaum sits in the chair and smiles. Nurse Judy told me about you. She said you were going through a hard time. I thought maybe a chat would do you good. Sammy shows the necklace in his hand. Did you send this? The rabbi shakes his head. No, but I suggested Judy give it to you. I hope you don't mind. Sammy says, no, I don't understand. Why a Star of David? Rabbi Nussbaum takes a deep breath. Because the Star of David is not just a Jewish symbol, it is a symbol of struggle, pain, and ultimately redemption. King David was a small shepherd. He fought the giant Goliath. Everyone laughed at him, but he won because he had faith, not just in himself, but in something greater. Sammy listens. The rabbi continues. Right now you feel small, you've lost an eye, you fear your career is over. But let me tell you this, sometimes the greatest victories come after the greatest falls. How many times did King David fall before he became king? How many times was he mocked? But with every fall he got stronger, because he knew he wasn't fighting just for himself. Sammy's eye tears up. But I am not a king, I am just a showman. The rabbi laughs. No, Mr. Davis, you are a king in your own field. When you dance on stage, you lift people up, you give them joy, you make them forget their own pain. That is a power greater than royalty. But the question is now, where do you draw this power from? Just from the applause, because applause can end one day. But if you draw from a deeper source, nothing can stop you. The rabbi explains the fundamental principles of Judaism, tikkun olam, repairing the world, tzedakah, justice and charity, and most importantly, community. Jews, the rabbi says, are the people who have seen the most persecution in history, but they never disappeared. Why? Because they are connected to each other, because they knew they were not alone, because they believe that pain is temporary, but faith is eternal. Listening to these words, Sammy feels something, perhaps for the first time a sense of belonging, because he too had seen pain all his life, racism, segregation, backdoor-only signs, colored restrooms, being a black man in a white world, and now a rabbi is telling him that another people suffered the same pain, and they didn't just suffer, they survived. They didn't just resist, they thrived. Sammy looks at the rabbi. He doesn't say, I want to be Jewish, because he isn't ready yet, but he says something else. Can I keep the necklace? I want to learn more. The rabbi smiles. My door is always open, Mr. Davis. Sammy is discharged from the hospital, December 1954. There are still bandages on his face as he returns home. His house in Los Angeles feels familiar, but now alien. He looks in the mirror. His right eye is fine, but on the left side there are only eyelids. Beneath them, an empty socket. Sammy will never forget that moment, taking off the bandages and seeing himself in the mirror. Two-eyed Sammy is gone. One-eyed Sammy remains. Who is this man? Will the audience accept him? Will producers continue to work with him? And most importantly, can he accept himself? The days grow heavy. Sammy sits at home. The phone rings, but he rarely answers. Friends come to visit, but he can't joke like he used to. The void inside him isn't just physical, it's spiritual. And to fill that void, he goes searching for something. That little Star of David necklace is still around his neck. He never takes it off. He wears it even while sleeping at night. It's as if that necklace connects him to something. But what? January 1955, Sammy calls Rabbi Nussbaum. I want to see you, if it's convenient. The rabbi says, Of course, come to the synagogue. Friday night there is a Shabbat service. Come and watch. Maybe you'll feel something. Sammy goes to the synagogue that Friday night. For the first time, he parks the car and walks toward the building. Inside, he encounters a world he has never known. People are singing Hebrew songs. The rabbi reads from the Torah. Candles are burning. Everyone stands, then sits, then stands again. Rituals unknown to Sammy, but something happens. Within those rituals, he feels a peace. It's as if he is traveling back in time, thousands of years back. The weight of millennia somehow gives him strength, because he understands that pain is not new. People have suffered for centuries, but they are still standing, still singing, still giving thanks. The service ends. Rabbi Nussbaum approaches Sammy. How was it? Sammy, tears in his eyes, says, I don't know how to describe it, but liberating. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. The rabbi puts a hand on Sammy's shoulder. This is a start. If you want to continue, I am here. And Sammy continues. He goes to the synagogue every week. Rabbi Nussbaum teaches him Hebrew. He gives him Torah lessons, Jewish history, Jewish philosophy, Jewish laws. He learns it all. And with every lesson, the void inside Sammy fills a little more. But this doesn't happen overnight. It takes months, even years. Because converting to Judaism isn't just signing a paper. It is a lifestyle change, an identity change, and Sammy takes this very seriously. At the same time, he continues his career. In early 1955, he returns to the stage. His first performance is at Cyro's nightclub in Hollywood. The audience is waiting with curiosity. When Sammy steps on stage, he wears an eye patch, but as he starts to dance, everyone forgets the patch, because Sammy is even better than before. He dances, sings, and jokes with one eye, and he receives a standing ovation. Critics write, Sammy Davis Jr. is back and stronger, but Sammy is carrying something now. That Star of David necklace is still around his neck, hidden under his stage costume. No one sees it, but Sammy knows, and that knowledge gives him power. Sammy now studies regularly with Rabbi Nussbaum. The conversion process continues, but there is a problem. Hollywood starts to hear about this. Gossip spreads. Sammy Davis Jr. wants to be a Jew. Some laugh. A black man Jewish? That's ridiculous. Some get angry. Voices rise from the black community. Is Sammy abandoning his own people? Voices from the white community. Even the Jews won't accept him. But Rabbi Nussbaum tells him, Sammy, if conversion were easy, everyone would do it. But you didn't choose the easy path. You haven't chosen the easy path at any moment in your life. Why start now? Sammy holds on to these words, and he presses on. 1957, 1958, 1959, 3 years of intense study. He learns to read Hebrew. He memorizes the Torah. He observes Jewish holidays. He starts eating kosher. And the more he does, the more whole he feels. 1960 is the turning point for Sammy Davis Jr., both spiritually and personally. In February, the official conversion ceremony is held. Rabbi Max Nussbaum and 2 other rabbis accept Sammy into the Jewish community. The ceremony takes place in a small synagogue in Los Angeles, closed to the press. Only a few close friends and family are present. Sammy enters the mikveh, the ritual purification pool. He dips under the water and emerges. Symbolically, his old life dies and his new life is born. The rabbis pray in Hebrew. Sammy repeats. Officially, Sammy Davis Jr. is now a Jew. his Hebrew name Shmuel. And in that moment, Sammy cries, out of happiness, out of relief, and perhaps because for the first time he truly feels he belongs. But the outside world doesn't know yet. For a few weeks it remains a secret. Sammy thinks about how to announce it, because he knows the reaction will be harsh. And in March, during an interview, a journalist asks, "Sammy, we hear you've become Jewish. Is this true?" Sammy takes a deep breath. "Yes, it's true. I am a Jew." The next day, the headlines explode. Sammy Davis Jr. becomes a Jew. The news is everywhere. Some papers write, "Sammy's brave spiritual journey." Some mocking headlines, "Black Jew, Hollywood's strangest decision." And some are aggressive. Sammy Davis abandons his own race. The reaction from the black community is particularly harsh. Civil rights leaders criticize Sammy. "Isn't it hard enough being black? Now he wants to be Jewish too. This is a betrayal of his people." Some churches condemn Sammy. "He rejected Christianity. This is a sin." Because society likes to put people in boxes. Ron Sammy answers, "I didn't choose Judaism because I was ashamed of being black. I chose Judaism because it gave me inner peace. This is my choice. No one ordered me to do this, and no one can take it from me. Being black is part of my identity. Being Jewish is now part of my identity. Both define me." But beyond society's reaction, Sammy's conversion has a deeper meaning, and that meaning reveals itself one night in a private conversation with Rabbi Nussbaum. Fall of 1960. Sammy goes to the rabbi's house. It is late, close to midnight. The two sit in the rabbi's study. Books, candles, silence. Sammy confesses something to the rabbi, something he has never told anyone. "Rabbi," he says, "I need to tell you something. My decision to become Jewish wasn't just a spiritual search. Yes, that was there, but there was something deeper. I was looking for God, because the stage lights weren't enough." The rabbi listens carefully. Sammy continues, "You know, all my life I received applause. People loved me, they admired me, and I drew strength from that. But after the accident, lying in that hospital room, I realized that applause is temporary. One day the curtain will close, people will forget, and then what will be left? If I live only for applause, then nothing will be left. But if I live for a deeper meaning, then something remains. And Judaism gave me that meaning." Rabbi Nussbaum looks at Sammy with tear-filled eyes. "Sammy, you have discovered a very deep truth. People usually see religion as an escape, but true religion is the opposite. It is a confrontation with yourself, your world, and God. You have done this, and this is something very few people can do." Sammy says, "But sometimes I ask myself, did I do the right thing? Because everyone around me is angry at me. My family, my community, even some friends. Maybe I am wrong." The rabbi shakes his head. "Sammy, choosing the right path isn't always choosing the popular path. Sometimes the right path is the hardest one. But in the end, the only thing that matters is being at peace with your own heart. And I watch you, and I see that you are at peace. That is the proof you are not wrong." When Sammy leaves the rabbi's house that night, he feels a lightness, because he no longer has doubts. His decision is clear. He is Sammy Davis Jr., black and Jewish, and this is his identity, forever. Sammy's Judaism doesn't just change him privately, it reflects in his artistic identity. In the mid-1960s, Sammy begins performing Jewish songs. Hava Nagila, a traditional Jewish song, joins his repertoire. At first, the audience is surprised. Sammy Davis Jr. singing in Hebrew on a Las Vegas stage, but then they applaud because Sammy interprets it with such energy and enthusiasm that no one can remain indifferent. Even non-Jews find themselves dancing because music is universal, and Sammy captures that universality. Or in another performance, Sammy wears the Star of David necklace on stage. He no longer hides it, he shows it openly, and an audience member shouts, "Sammy, we love you, whether black or Jewish." Sammy smiles, because in that moment he understands that true love is unconditional, and some people accept him as he is. Of course, there are still critics, still those who condemn, but Sammy no longer focuses on them, because there is peace inside him. He has a foundation, and that foundation comes from his belonging to Judaism and his sense of meaning. Sammy makes his first visit to Israel. This is a very special moment for him, because Israel is the Jewish homeland, and when Sammy steps foot there, he feels an indescribable emotion, as if he has returned home. He lands in Tel Aviv, visits Jerusalem, goes to the Wailing Wall. When he touches those stones, he weeps, because he understands that this wall is a symbol of thousands of years of pain, but also of resistance. And Sammy knows he is a story of resistance in his own life. He gives concerts in Israel, and the Israelis embrace him. "Sammy, Sammy," they shout. And Sammy sings in Hebrew on stage. Everyone is shocked, because he is not just a tourist, he is a Jew. And the Israeli audience feels this. After the concert, an old woman approaches Sammy. Her eyes are teary. "You," she says in Hebrew, "you are one of us. Welcome." Sammy hugs the woman, and he realizes that the entire journey, all the struggle, was worth it. But Sammy's Jewish identity doesn't make life easier. In fact, it makes it harder. He is now fighting on two fronts. On one side, his relationship with the black community is tense. Some view him as a sellout. As the civil rights movement intensifies, Sammy's Jewish identity is interpreted by some activists as a distraction. Being black is hard enough, they say. Why did you want to be Jewish too? Runner Sammy answers these criticisms. In an interview, he says, "I am both black and Jewish. I don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Both are me. And both make me strong, because as a double minority I understand twice as well what oppression is." But this answer isn't satisfying to everyone, especially in the late 1960s. As black nationalism rises, Sammy's position becomes more complex. Leaders like Malcolm X reject his views, advocating for a separate black identity. And in their eyes, Sammy is someone too close to the white world. On the other side, the relationship with the Jewish community isn't always smooth. Some conservative Jews don't take Sammy's conversion seriously. He's just putting on a show, they say. He's not a real Jew. This hurts Sammy deeply, because he took his conversion extremely seriously. Years of study, learning, practice, but some still see him as an outsider. Rabbi Nussbaum supports Sammy. "Sammy," he says, "you studied. The rabbinical council accepted you. God accepted you. Some people will never accept anything. That is the problem. Theirs, not yours." Rabbi Nussbaum supports Sammy. "Sammy," he says, "you studied. The rabbinical council accepted you. God accepted you." In the fall of 1960, Sammy Davis Jr. marries Swedish actress May Britt. This marriage creates a bombshell effect in America, because at that time interracial marriage was still illegal in 31 states. The marriage of a white woman and a black man was unacceptable to large segments of society. Death threats arrive, bomb threats are made, and in some states Sammy's shows are canceled. But Sammy and May decide to marry, and the wedding ceremony is conducted as a Jewish ceremony. Rabbi Nussbaum officiates the wedding. Under the chuppah, the traditional Jewish wedding canopy, Sammy and May get married. And this is very important for Sammy, because he wants the marriage to be not just a civil union, but a spiritual one. May Britt is not Jewish, but she respects Sammy's faith. And during the ceremony, she accepts certain Jewish traditions. The ritual of breaking the glass, Sammy crushes a glass with his foot at the end of the wedding. This symbolizes the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, but also the fragility of life. Sammy never forgets this. The years of marriage are both happy and challenging for Sammy. He has 3 children with May, Tracy, Mark, and Jeff. Sammy tries to raise them according to Jewish traditions. On Shabbat evenings, the family eats together. He lights candles, prays in Hebrew. Hanukkah is celebrated. Passover Seders are held. The children sometimes get confused because they have both black and white heritage, both Jewish and Christian backgrounds. But Sammy teaches them identity is not a choice. It is a richness. You belong to many worlds. This doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. But the outside world doesn't always understand this richness. The children are occasionally teased, neighbors are sometimes cold, and Sammy, getting into bed at night, asks himself, did I put this burden on them? But then he remembers life is full of choices, and he made the right choice, living his own truth. Entering the 1970s, Junior's career was at its peak, but his personal life was turbulent. His marriage to May Britt became strained, and they eventually divorced in 19. Sammy sought refuge in alcohol and drugs. Performing every night in Vegas, he felt hollow off stage. During this period, his Jewish faith was tested. In hard times, he went to the synagogue, talked to the rabbi, prayed, because he now knew that applause was temporary, but faith was permanent. One night after a particularly bad performance, Sammy was sitting alone in his hotel room, a bottle of whiskey in hand, cocaine on the table, and suddenly he sees the Star of David necklace on the nightstand. That necklace had been with him since 1954, 6 years and more. Looking at that necklace, he remembers something. Nurse Judy's sentence, maybe now is the time to think. That night, Sammy doesn't touch the cocaine. He puts away the whiskey bottle, and he kneels and prays. In Hebrew, not fluent but sincere. Adonai, I need you, because I am afraid. That prayer saves him for one night, maybe not for good, because addiction is not easily defeated. But that night, the Jewish faith gives him hope. In 1972, that famous photo of Sammy Davis Jr. hugging Richard Nixon is taken, and this breaks his relationship with the black community. He is declared a traitor. Nixon appreciates Sammy's courage and gives him an award for social courage. When receiving the award, Sammy says, all my life I lived between 2 worlds, the black world and the white world. But when I became Jewish, I found a 3rd world, and that world taught me this: courage doesn't come from being popular, it comes from doing what is right. These words anger his critics, but they also inspire others. Because Sammy never chooses the easy path, he always lives his own truth. That prayer saves him for one night, maybe not for good, because addiction is not easily defeated. But that night, the Jewish faith gives him hope. Ron, in 1972, that famous photo of Sammy Davis Jr. hugging Richard Nixon is taken, and this breaks his relationship with the black community. He is declared a traitor. Nixon appreciates Sammy's courage and gives him an award for social courage. When receiving the award, Sammy says, "All my life I lived between two worlds, the black world and the white world. But when I became Jewish, I found a third world, and that world taught me this: courage doesn't come from being popular, it comes from doing what is right." These words anger his critics, but they also inspire others. Because Sammy never chooses the easy path, he always lives his own truth. Sammy's health deteriorates rapidly, the cancer progresses, but he still goes on tour. The final shows are filled with thunderous applause. Some nights he is nearly fainting on stage, but he finishes the performance because this is who he is. Sammy Davis Jr., the showman. Around in December 1989, he gives his final concert, Harrah's Lake Tahoe. The audience gives a standing ovation, weeping because they know this is a farewell. Sammy steps onto the stage for the last time. His voice has turned almost to a whisper, but he sings Mr. Bojangles, one of his signature songs, and he dances. Slowly, tiredly, he dances because Sammy Davis Jr. cannot live without dancing. At the end of the scene, the applause dies down. Sammy stays, and finally he says, "Thank you to all of you for being here on this journey. I was not just an entertainer, I was a survivor, and you kept me alive." The audience applauds through tears, and Sammy leaves the stage for the last time. 6 months later, May 16, 1990, Sammy Davis Jr. closes his eyes to life at his home in Los Angeles, 64 years old. Beside him are his wife Altovas, his children, and a few close friends. Before taking his last breath, he holds that Star of David necklace, the necklace Nurse Judy gave him in night, and his final words are a Hebrew prayer, Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the holiest prayer said before death in Jewish tradition. The funeral service is held at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Thousands of people attend. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Liza Minnelli, Jesse Jackson, and many more, but the ceremony is conducted as a Jewish service. Rabbi Jeffrey Weil leads the ceremony. He reads Hebrew prayers. The Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, is recited, and an Israeli flag is draped over the coffin. Because Sammy Davis Jr. was not just a showman, he was a Jew. Frank Sinatra says in his speech, "Sammy was my brother, but he wasn't just my brother, he was everyone's brother, because he hid nothing. He was black, he was Jewish, he was himself, and this courage made him immortal." Rabbi Weil described Sammy's journey. Sammy Davis Jr. experienced two great conversions. First, in 1954, after that car accident, after the funeral, Sammy's will is read, and there is a surprising clause. Sammy left his entire fortune to his children and Jewish charities. Specifically, he made a large donation to a foundation supporting Holocaust survivors, because Sammy had united his own pain with the pain of others, and that unity gave him a sense of purpose. But the most important part of this story has not yet been told, because the identity of Nurse Judy was never revealed, and Sammy never saw her again. After the hospital visit, Judy vanished. Sammy looked for her for many years. He asked the hospital, but there was no official record of anyone named Judy. He asked Rabbi Nussbaum. The rabbi remained silent. It was as if Judy was a ghost or an angel. In 1985, a journalist asked Sammy about this. Did you ever find Nurse Judy? Sammy shakes his head. No, but sometimes I think maybe I wasn't supposed to find her. Maybe she was just there when she needed to be. And she gave me what I needed. That Star of David necklace changed my life. But Judy never said who she was, and I don't question it anymore, because some things remain a mystery on purpose, because that mystery is faith itself. But in 2010, 20 years after Sammy's death, a documentary crew investigates the 1954 accident. They examine the old records of San Bernardino Community Hospital, and there they find a name, Judith Levy, a nurse working at that hospital in 1954. But an interesting detail, Judith Levy was a Holocaust survivor who was liberated from Auschwitz in 19. Her family was killed in the concentration camp. Judith immigrated to America, became a nurse, and dedicated her life to helping people. The documentary crew finds Judith's diaries. There is an entry. November 9th. Today a man was brought to the emergency room. Sammy Davis Jr. He lost his eye. He was in so much pain. He looked so lost. I saw the same look in his eyes that I saw in the camps. The look of why me? I gave him my necklace. My father gave it to me before he died. It kept me alive. But now maybe someone else needs it. And I know that pain is universal. But after pain there can be purpose, and maybe this will give him purpose. That Star of David necklace was not just jewelry. It was a symbol of survival, a legacy passed from generation to generation. And by accepting that gift, Sammy didn't just join a religion, he joined a history. So what does Sammy Davis Jr.'s conversion to Judaism mean today? Why is this story still important 60 years later? First, Sammy's story is about the complexity of identity. It is the story of people who do not fit into a single box. Sammy could be both black and Jewish, and this was a radical idea for the America of that time. Even today it is radical, because society loves to divide people, but Sammy broke down all categories, and this destruction creates freedom. Second, Sammy's story is about the transformative power of pain. That car accident destroyed him, but it also rebuilt him, because pain sometimes opens a door, and people who pass through that door can reach a deeper meaning. Sammy walked through that door, and on the other side he found Judaism. Third, Sammy's story is about community and belonging. Sammy felt like an outsider all his life, too black, too Jewish, too different. But within Judaism he found a place. It wasn't perfect. There were still critics, still rejection, but at least there was a bond, and that bond gave him the strength to survive. 1 year before his death in 1989, Sammy Davis Jr. gave an interview about his life. The journalist asked him, "After all these years, do you regret your decision to become Jewish?" Sammy stayed silent for a long time. Then he smiled. "Regret? No, never, because that decision made me me. I am not just an entertainer. I became a human being. A human who suffers, loves, believes, and Judaism allowed me to do that. Yes, it was hard. Yes, many people didn't understand me, but I became a whole person, and that is better than anything. Regran. You know," he continued, "I lived most of my life for applause. I danced, I sang, I joked so people would clap for me. But in that hospital room in 1954, no one was clapping. There was just me, my pain, and that little Star of David necklace. and in that moment I realized that true power comes from within. It comes from faith. It comes from community. Regran, I became a Jew because I wanted to learn what it means to survive. Jews have seen every kind of persecution throughout history, but they are still here, still singing, dancing, succeeding, and I wanted to be part of that strength. Some called me a traitor. They said I abandoned my own people, but I never abandoned anyone. I just added something else to myself. Being black is my honor. Being Jewish is my choice, and both define me. Regran, if I were born again, would I do the same things? Absolutely, because that path brought me here. 64 years old, on the verge of death, but at peace, because I know who I really am. So is the true, never before explained reason for Sammy Davis Jr.'s conversion to Judaism actually known? The official story, spiritual quests, diverse curiosities, a cultural key, the true story, the memory of a nurse, the necklace of a Holocaust survivor, a hand extended in a moment of pain, and from that hand emerged a community, a faith, and an identity. Sammy never fully revealed this truth, perhaps because he thought explaining it would diminish its power, or perhaps that moment was so personal, so sacred, that it could not be expressed in words. But today, with the discovery of Judith Levy's diaries, it is no longer hidden. Sammy Davis Jr. did not choose to be Jewish because he thought it would be easy. He became Jewish because he felt it was right. In that hospital room on that dark night, he saw a light, and that light was in the shape of a Star of David. And today, on Sammy's tombstone, there are two symbols. On one side, a pair of tap shoes, the symbol of the show. On the other, the Star of David, the symbol of the Jew. Together, they define Sammy Davis Jr., a man of two worlds, an artist of two identities, and ultimately a single human being, a human who suffered, loved, survived, and is remembered until the very end. If you take anything from this story, remember this: identity is not a choice, it is a journey. And Sammy Davis Jr.'s journey was one of the bravest ever recorded, because he chose to be honest with both himself and the world, and that honesty made him immortal. Shalom, Sammy, and thank you for the courage you showed us, for the faith you taught us, and for the legacy you left us. Sammy Davis Jr.'s story still echoes today, because the world still struggles with issues of identity. People are still being tried to be put into boxes. But Sammy's legacy reminds us of this: you can be more than one thing, and that doesn't make you weak, it makes you unique. On Israel, there is a Sammy Davis Jr. Cultural Center in Tel Aviv, a place that brings Black and Jewish artists together in his name, because Sammy built a bridge between two worlds, and that bridge still stands. In America, in civil rights museums, he is in the photography sections with that Star of David necklace, because he became a symbol of both the Black struggle and Jewish resistance. And there, when people listen to Sammy's story, they feel something: hope, because Sammy made the impossible possible. And if he could do it, maybe we can too. Maybe we too can find our own Star of David necklace. We can endure our own spiritual journey. And maybe in the end, we can define ourselves simply as, I am a human being. This is the real reason Sammy Davis Jr. never fully explained. The memory of a nurse, the broken silence of a Holocaust survivor, a bond born in a moment of pain, and an identity that emerged from that connection: Black, Jewish, showman, human, all in one, forever. And perhaps the most beautiful thing is this: Sammy never fully told this story because some truths are lived but not told. They are felt but not expressed in words. And those truths are the deepest truths of all. Sammy Davis Jr. lost an eye in 19, but in that loss he found his soul. And that soul, even 60 years later, is shining, radiant, brave, and forever Jewish. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And Sammy Davis Jr. was a part of that oneness,